best buy in Dynasty, the MVP, is Rashad White. No doubt. All-purpose back, everything you're looking for. He already broke out, 50 catches last year, relegated Leonard Fournette. What am I missing? Why was this not reported on? It's so weird, right? Just ignore this guy who was awesome. Well, his yards per carry. He wasn't creating enough yards on his own. He actually was brought down to the backfield. All the good offensive linemen in Tampa got hurt, and the bad ones were healthy, like Donovan Smith. He was set up to fail, and yet he didn't. He was great, and yet we're not excited? This is a young running back, pre-Apex, with an all-purpose skill set and size. He's gonna be a top 5 running back in Dynasty. That's your MVP. And the bust is Quentin Johnston, no doubt about it. You might say, well, you know, he could struggle. Yeah, he's raw. Yeah, I mean, Devontae Adams struggled for 2 years. These guys are first-round picks. They lock in their value. You can retain the value. It's a great investment. Quentin Johnston, first-round pick. Herbert, first-round pick. Well, first-round picks, last time I checked, are no guarantee to break out. Just ask N'Keal Harry. How did that dynasty value get retained year over year for N'Keal Harry? And something very similar about to happen with Quentin Johnston because he has a very limited route tree and he also can't squeeze the football deep, so he doesn't have a lot of value for football teams. And eventually the Chargers are going to figure out there's really not a lot there. But I'm certain there's going to be some football team in Canada that's going to find a role for him. Look out for the next CFL MVP, Quentin Johnston.
Another player who's going to kill it, Chris Olave. Chris Olave is going to be the Dynasty MVP this season. Last year in rookie drafts, he fell to a point where teams that were on the cusp were able to draft him. Not the worst teams in the league, but the teams right there in the middle. Olave is the guy that's going to push a lot of these teams to fantasy championships. I think he finishes as a top 8 wide receiver this season. We've seen Derek Carr support big-time players the last 4 seasons. Devontae Adams last year, Hunter Renfrow the year before, Darren Waller back-to-back seasons before that. Carr has carried a guy towards the top of his positional rankings in PPR for 4 straight seasons. He's going to make it 5 with Olave. Olave's trade value is going to go up and up and up all season. I think he's going to have a tremendous year. And sorry about this one, Randy, but the least valuable player in Dynasty this year is going to be Najee Harris. Najee Harris is going to be a guy that fantasy managers are going to wish that they would have maybe got out of when he was red hot in his value. I think that Jaylen Warren is going to cut into his role a little bit more than last year. I think Najee Harris getting back to a PPR nightmare catching the ball, I think those days are kind of over. I think he could get up to like 45 to 50 receptions, but I think that that's probably unlikely. I think it's going to be more like last season in terms of the reception totals, and I think that the rushing total might go down. I think Najee Harris finishes somewhere like RB22, and I think Jaylen Warren finishes inside of the top 36. I think he is a running back 3, and I think it's more of a committee. There you go, guys.
My Dynasty MVP for this season is going to be Falcons tight end Kyle Pitts. I think those teams that decided to hold on to him or decided to go out and pay the price for him will be glad when he finishes as the tight end 1 overall in redraft and vaults right back up to tight end 1 overall in Dynasty as well. My Dynasty bust, he's not necessarily a bust, I don't think, but I still think he'll have a good season, but I don't think that he deserves the value he's at right now, and that is Eagles wide receiver A.J. Brown. One of my favorite moves to be making this offseason is to take A.J. Brown and go get Devontae Smith and an extra cherry on top, because sometimes that cherry can be huge, and I really think that these two players are basically going to be neck and neck every single year, and Devontae is going to offer a much better floor with a similar ceiling, even if he isn't as athletic, as much of a beast as A.J. Brown. In terms of fantasy football, I think that they can produce the same, and the Dynasty teams that have been able to offload A.J. Brown at the top of his market will be happy they've done so.
Who is my fantasy MVP? That's got to be DJ Moore, wide receiver from the Chicago Bears. My man has always been a producer in the NFL. He has 3 seasons of 1,100 or more receiving yards, and he's played with complete bums at quarterback. We're talking about a washed Cam Newton, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Kyle Allen, Brandon Allen, Tim Allen, doesn't matter. Even the two-man couldn't get him going. And last year with Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold as his quarterback, he proved to be an absolute alpha, where he had a 48% air yard share and had a dominator rating that was in the top 5 amongst qualified wide receivers. And on top of that, he had some of the most unrealized air yards in the NFL, 820. And now he's going to be playing with the most talented thrower of the football that he has ever played with in Justin Fields. The match is going to be be one that they call made in heaven. DJ Moore, Justin Fields. And that's why when DJ Moore is getting taken right around wide receiver 20, I love that top 12 upside. That's why DJ Moore is my MVP. And not to mention, let's just go back to the zoo. So I'm at the zoo, I'm walking around. I also notice the Lions. The Lions are always laying down, and they're always laying down behind a rock. Yeah, lions are cool. Lions are badass in nature, but at the zoo, I ain't gonna lie, the big cats are a bit of a bust when you're trying to go around and see the animals do their thing at the zoo. And my bust this year for fantasy football is going to be Josh Jacobs. You have to use a top 30 pick, so you got to take him in the early part of round 3 to get the running back. He's been the beacon of consistency throughout his career, and last year he was an absolute beast, one of the best running backs in fantasy, but he had over 370 touches, which has been a bit of a kiss of death for the following season when it comes to these running backs. He held out all preseason, so he didn't get his normal workout routine in. He didn't get his normal reps in. He's going to be showing up to camp right before the season kicks off. The offense is probably going to be a bit worse than it was last year. Vegas is just, I don't know if they're really going to fire all cylinders with Jimmy G at the helm. Plus, you look at that AFC West. The Broncos have a pretty good D. Even the Chiefs have a pretty good D. Chargers too at that. I don't know if Josh Jacobs is going to return value where you have to take him right around pick 27. So he is my bust for the 2023 season.
So here we go. My Dynasty MVP is obvious. I don't know how people are debating me. People like Matt Babbage are saying crazy things like, we don't want David Montgomery, get David Montgomery out of here. We don't like him at all. We don't even want to see him in our peripheral. But David Montgomery is a player that you must buy. You must get him on your roster right now if you need a running back and you're a win now team. He's a must buy. He's so cheap because people perceive him as being an old running back. He's 26 years old, people. He's going to be running behind a top 5 offensive line. He's going to be Jamal Williams 2.0. If the Lions offense can produce 17 touchdowns for a dusty old Jamal Williams, how many do you think David Montgomery's going to rush for? Like 23? I don't know. The ceiling is the roof for this guy, and I get it. They drafted Jahmyr Gibbs at pick 12. I understand that, okay? I get it. I got it, okay? People keep saying this like I don't know. I understand. The problem is, with that take, is that these players are going to be used on the field at the same time. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be used as a pass catcher, and he should be because he's a really good pass catcher. But who's going to protect Goff, an immobile quarterback, in pass protection? It's going to be David Montgomery. David Montgomery's going to be on the field in those critical downs. He's going to be on the field in the red zone. Who do you think is going to get those touches? Inside the 10, inside the 5. It's going to be David Montgomery. He's going to rush for double-digit touchdowns. He can also catch passes. David Montgomery can do it all on an offense that's going to score a ton of points, be in a ton of shootouts in the NFC North. I don't know what's wrong with people. Go get David Montgomery now in Dynasty. He's a clear Dynasty MVP. My Dynasty bust. It's not because I don't like him, okay? I like this guy just fine, but it's Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson is being overvalued. He's being valued ahead of CeeDee Lamb in some places, ahead of Amon-Ra St. Brown, ahead of Chris Olave. It's a mistake. He's playing with Aaron Rodgers, who's turning 40 years old. There's no guarantee that Aaron Rodgers is going to be any good, first of all. He showed real signs of slipping last year. And I know some people say, oh, it's because he's dealing with a broken thumb, but it's funny how there's always an excuse for Aaron Rodgers, seemingly. In the playoffs, his performance, whatever. He's always got some kind of excuse. I'm sick of it. Aaron Rodgers is not very good anymore, and he plays slow. Look at his pace of play. And then he brought the Green Bay Dust Bunnies with him, Allen Lazard and Randall Cobb. And what do old people who prefer rocking chairs and watching Jeopardy in the afternoon, what do they like? They like comfort. They like things that they're familiar with. And what's familiar? What's more familiar to Aaron Rodgers than Randall Cobb and Allen Lazard? It might be boring, but it's what old people like Aaron Rodgers like. They like those things. So who do you think he's going to throw the ball to in critical situations? It's who he's comfortable with. This is going to limit the opportunities of Garrett Wilson enough to push him down the dynasty ranks last year. I'm not going to say the bottom's going to fall out of Garrett Wilson because he's too talented. It's just that he shouldn't be ranked ahead of Chris Olave, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and surely not ahead of CeeDee Lamb. I mean, what are we doing?
My 2023 fantasy MVP is going to be Christian Watson, wide receiver on the Green Bay Packers. Christian Watson will never be cheaper than he is right now. I'm not even sure why he's not considered in the same tier as Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. Last year, Christian Watson already broke out. We don't have to project him to take that next leap. From week 10 to 18, he was the wide receiver 9. That's a top 10 wide receiver. I expect him to click with Jordan Love just like he did in week 12 last year, where he caught 4 passes for 110 yards and a touchdown. Go get Christian Watson right now. It doesn't matter what you have to pay. It's going to be more expensive next year. My Dynasty Bust is going to be Breece Hall. I'm a Jets fan. I love Breece Hall, but Breece Hall is coming back from a week 7 ACL tear. Running backs have about a 10-month return to play, which does put him at week 1, but about 18 months until they get back to normal. The Jets signed Dalvin Cook. Everyone presumes it's a 1-year thing. What if the Jets make the playoffs and move along and Dalvin Cook is a part of that success? There's a chance that they re-sign him, and Breece Hall is now in a full-on timeshare. I like Breece Hall. I think he could be a good player, but relative to where he's being drafted, relative to what his cost is in the trade market, he will be a bust in 2023.
The MVP is pretty easy for me. It's Najee Harris. I don't know how many people have listened to this podcast and not heard me say that dude's name a ton of times this offseason. 1,600 yards as a rookie, 1,300 yards as a sophomore, 10 touchdowns in both seasons. His competition is Jalen Warren, and I know some of y'all like to prop up nonsense, paint it pink and call it Barbie. It's not. I mean, the dude has 600 yards last year and he had 1 touchdown. It seems like a whole hell of a lot of nothing to me. That's a compliment to Najee Harris. Najee's never even missed a game, so he's got minimal competition. He plays every game, and he's been productive every single year he's been in the league. What am I missing? And he keeps falling down draft boards. This is like what Josh Jacobs was before last year. I know once he's not the new hotness, because he was the 101 and everybody loved him. And now it's been a couple years and that shine has been dulling out, but absolutely good value. Absolutely love Najee Harris. That's going to be my dog. I'm going to have him everywhere in my redraft leagues, everywhere in Dynasty, because I like winning. And avoiding that guy is dumb. Now, granted, this is my MO to sort of pivot, trying to zig when everybody's zagging on running backs. People don't like Najee. He's easily MVP caliber for me. As far as the bust, Calvin Ridley, man. Like, what? This man has done one thing in his entire career as a dynasty asset, and we're going to keep propping him up. The one 1,300-yard season like 3 years ago, we got a new quarterback, a new system, plus he missed all of last year because he gambled. This guy has perpetually been an 800-yard receiver. He gets touchdowns, which is nice, and that's sort of propped him up into a wide receiver too, but that's it. And now he's coming into a system that has Travis Etienne, who had 1,400 yards last year. You got Christian Kirk, who's been more productive in the last 2 years than outside of the 1,300-yard season Calvin Ridley has ever been. I mean, he had 1,100 last year. He had almost 1,000 yards the year before. Christian Kirk's just been better, and he's got that rapport with Trevor Lawrence. And Evan Ingram is still there. This guy has a lot of mouths to feed there, and Calvin Ridley's just going to come in out of nowhere and help that out. I think it's a great move for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Just where he is going in draft and what his trade value is. Ew. No, thank you. Y'all take it easy. Go win some money.